Hello everyone, welcome back to Review and Rate. Today we're entering into a world of creepiness and sudden jump scares. That's right, we are going to quietly move around in these rooms and avoid Mr. X at any cost to talk about Resident Evil 2 Remake, a game developed by Capcom and released in 2019. If you're a fan of fantastic survival horror, terrifying environments and perfect remakes, you won't want to miss this review. Now, let's just get out of the safe room and get ready to enter the world of RE2 Remake. RE2 Remake excels in its gameplay and mechanics, giving the player a perfect survival horror game. There are a lot of similarities and also a lot of differences between RE2 and RE3 Remake in terms of gameplay. So I will try to not talk very much about same things in both games, but of course I will explain the differences and what's better certainly. First, saving is pretty much the same. Just go to a safe room or a place where there is a typewriter and save manually, and if you didn't, the game saves automatically. However, difficulty is different here because there are only 3, where each one has its own details of what that difficulty does. The greatest difficulty, which is hardcore, gives a unique kind of challenge. That in addition to having stronger enemies and no autosave, you can't save unless you have encryptions. If you watched my previous reviews of RE0 and Remake, I am sure you remember how I was frustrated with those games requiring encryptions to save. And that's still true, especially since those games don't let you play without them at all. In other words, you are required to play with encryptions, while in RE2 Remake, you have the option to play with standard difficulty that doesn't require it, or the hardcore that does require it. So you actually have the option, and that's what I very much liked about this game. But moving on. Inventory can be infinitely stored in an item box, and is one of the main things in this game, because you will be holding a lot of items in your pocket. Even though you can find extra 2 spaces pockets here and there when you explore, you would still need to go back to an item box and store your items there in order to find others. You can empty spaces by using the item you hold, or discard it when you finish using it, or combining different items. This is where we get to exploration, because it is the most important thing. Very important that you have to explore in order to progress in the game. If you need to find where to go every time, you have to look at the map. The map points you in the right direction, as it tells the player the rooms they haven't gotten everything from, and places they haven't used items in. Even locked doors have key icons, so you would know exactly which key to use for which door. When you get these keys, of course. Really liked how the map was made here. And just like the keys, main items in general have clear indications of where to actually use them. Like when you get an item, I just examine it and won't think a second of finding the place it belongs to. Sometimes exploring is just for items you can use for yourself, like ammo and herbs. Since you will be facing a lot of enemies in your way, you definitely have to search for ammo because you will be running out pretty quickly. Herbs include green, red and blue herbs. Combining them all gives the player some extra armor for a short period of time. Progressing here doesn't just involve being in a certain level, finding all the items in that level, then going to the next one, but also you have to backtrack. Since this is a survival horror game, going back to get a certain item from a previous level in order to use it in the next level happens a few times. It is things like this where it makes exploration really enjoyable and have me explore every single room without worrying about finding something that is not interesting. Because everything you get is either important for progressing, or you can't progress until you get it. Very amazing. Like every Resident Evil game, notes are scattered throughout the game, containing information about different things and interesting story elements. Levels are pretty great and unique, each one showing different kinds of puzzles and enemies, and especially the way the levels are shaped in a way that don't feel the same and repetitive. Speaking about puzzles, there is really not much to talk about here, since it's pretty much a Resident Evil game, and mostly puzzles in these games never seem to disappoint, at least in the survival horror elements. Just in summary, very fun to solve and also very tough, even when it takes me a while to figure out the solution to a certain puzzle. Like RE3 Remake, this game also consists of gameplay and cutscenes. What is different here though, is that this game focuses way more on horror than action, making it a fantastic survival horror game. You will find just a tiny bit of action, but for the most part, RE2 Remake is a very terrifying game that really takes horror games into the next level. And this is not just an amazing horror game, but unlike RE3 Remake, which like I talked about in the review of that game, it was very short, and great things were cut from its original game to its remake. While this game is just a perfect remake, like everything was made to an extraordinary level that doesn't feel short or missing some things. And just like RE3 Remake, this game was improved over the original in everything, like third person over the shoulder camera, and the same things I mentioned in my past review of RE3 Remake. RE2 Remake gives you the option to either play with Leon or Claire's story, where each one offers different kinds of things. There are pretty much a great variety of weapons. Each character is given different weapons from the other. For example, Leon gets a shotgun, the lightning hawk, the flamethrower, and a rocket launcher in the end, while Claire gets a grenade launcher, a weapon called MQ-11, spark shot, and finally the minigun. They certainly do have similar side weapons like the grenades and the breakable knife that I liked it being this way because it makes using melee weapons more realistic. Other differences include Leon being chased down by a zombie-like crocodile, while Claire gets chased by a mutated William Birkin, and other scenes of course. Playable side characters like in Leon's story, you play a small part with Ada Wong, while in Claire's story you get to play with Sherry Birkin, giving the player significant differences in each story, and not feel like you are playing the game again. Finally, I think there are plenty of amazing enemies to fight. There are of course the zombies, where they have the same abilities as the ones I talked about in RE3 Remake, but offer extra capabilities. These capabilities include spawning infinitely from windows until you block them with wood, and can enter into other rooms by slamming the door unless it is a safe room obviously. In addition, there are the other enemies, like the zombie dog, the licker, the sewers creature, and then the plant zombie. This plant zombie is unique on its own in my opinion, because if you want to kill it, you have to do that with its weakness. It's clear that plants in general are weak to fire, so there you go. I actually like this kind of enemy, because it makes the player think about a way to kill that creature instead of shooting it with a normal weapon. I know that because it happened to me when I couldn't kill that enemy before, which is what made me give up until I realized I should try the flamethrower on it, and it did worked. Very creative enemies. Finally, there are the bosses and their battles, which are a transformed William Birkin, who is a normal boss that each time you have a battle with, you can defeat him by shooting at his weak points, and especially when he evolves. And the most important, and one of the best bosses in Resident Evil, is this guy called Mr. X. I don't want to call him a boss since the only time you face Mr. X in a battle is at the end of Leon's story. But he is kind of a big strong enemy whose real threat comes from his stealthiness and punching the player out of nowhere. Mr. X is just a fantastic opponent, certainly way better than Nemesis in RE3 Remake, and unlike Nemesis, Mr. X's strength comes from cornering the player, entering through doors, and a surprise punch. Mr. X is an example of an enemy that you don't really want to mess with, and this is where RE2 Remake stands at the top. There's really nothing negative I can say about RE2 Remake's gameplay and mechanics. It's just like I said before, a perfect survival horror game. Now, let's turn our focus into the story. RE2 Remake has a great story, continuing the narrative of previous Resident Evil games. The story is split into two, one talking about Leon's and one about Claire. Playing both stories, I think that Claire's story is better mainly because Claire's story with Sherry is way more interesting than Leon's story with Ada Wong. I just think in this game at least, Ada is a bit annoying, and I didn't like the scenes between her and Leon. I like Ada's mysteriousness, but it's just that I didn't understand why would Leon care about her. It just feels forced and stupid. But anyways, everything else is great, especially Leon's scenes with Claire. They both are great characters. In addition, of course there are over-the-top scenes, but even those are very few, and even when they happen, they are epic and don't feel repetitive. like with Nemesis in RE3 Remake. But to explain the story, since there are 2 runs for each character, I will explain the ones that are canon based on what I know. So like this, Leon's first run and Claire's second run. So let me summarize. The story takes place between RE3 Remake's events. Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield both went to Raccoon City and met at a gas station. Leon wants to go to the police station to have his first assignment there, while Claire went to search for her brother. On their way to the city, they realized that a zombie outbreak had struck there, turning the people into flesh-eating monsters and destroying the city. Taking shelter in the police station, they faced many difficulties with these creatures there, only to find themselves underground facing a transformed creature who turned out to be a person who worked with Umbrella named William Birkin. After they beat Birkin, Claire finds his daughter Sherry, while Leon gets attacked by a zombie dog, then saved by a mysterious person named Ada Wong. In the parking lot, Claire meets Chief Irons, who threatens her and kidnaps Sherry. So now Leon and Claire find a keycard for the parking lot door, where Claire goes to save Sherry while Leon follows Ada to search for William's wife, Annette, in order to get the G-Virus. Leon gets shot by Annette, so Ada goes after her until she gets trapped, while Sherry escapes from Chief Irons' place. Leon then goes to save Ada, and Claire arrives in the orphanage, discovering that Chief Irons got killed, so she and Sherry escapes while getting chased by William. Escaping William, Annette takes Sherry, so Claire goes to save her. They get attacked by William again, then Ada and Sherry get saved, so they go to a research facility that belongs to Umbrella. Sherry is still hurt from the virus, so Claire puts her in a hospital bed and finds her a vaccine, while Leon finally has the G-Virus sample. Defeating an evolved William, Annette gets killed, so Claire saves Sherry, and Leon gets betrayed by Ada. As the self-destruction begins, Ada accidentally falls, so Leon, Claire, and Sherry get on their way to escape. Leon fights an evolved Mr. X, giving him a final defeat, while Claire fights an even more evolved William. Finally, as they all go into the train, Claire realizes that William is still alive, now more stronger than ever, so they all work together and defeat William once and for all. Escaping the horrors of Raccoon City, Leon, Claire, and Sherry goes outside into the desert, setting a stage for a hopeful future. Really great story. It gave characters, whether main or side ones, something to care about them, even Ada, the one who I thought was annoying. But since we finished with the narrative, let's go to the graphics. RE2 Remake, just like RE3 Remake, offers exceptional graphics. I actually don't need to say much here, since I already explained the graphics of RE3 Remake in the review of that game, and here in RE2 Remake it is the same, with very amazing visuals. What's different here though is that the visuals fit more with horror, so everything in general looks more terrifying. The levels here really give me the spookiness, like it's designed for jump scares and very dark places. Also, every character looking very good, just like RE3 Remake, and very improved over their original games. And finally, both bosses, Mr. X and the transformed William Birkin, give their respective scary looks. So, let's go next to the sound. RE2 Remake fits its fantastic horror atmosphere with its great gut-wrenching sound. First, there are the enemies, where each of these monsters display unique scary sounds. Just listen to these terrifying enemies. If these enemies weren't scary enough, the perfect sound of Mr. X approaching me is the most terrifying thing in this game, especially when I get out of the safe room. I could hear him approaching, so I immediately get terrified trying to run away from him. Just look at these examples of hearing this sneaky creature. See how terrifying his sound is? If that didn't scare you, the different environment sounds and soundtracks very much helps create that horror even when there are no enemies nearby. Let me show you that. You connect all these things about the sound and you get in return this amazing horror experience. Also, this soundtrack you hear in the last battle with Mr. X, although it is an action scene, I think this is one of the best boss battle soundtracks. On a final note, the voice acting adds to all this with the great human interactions between the characters and their conversation with each other.
Yeah, Leon Kennedy. You are?
Claire Redfield.
Live around here?
No. I'm looking for my brother. He's a cop too.
Well, it's a good thing we found each other.
I don't believe it. A real human. Hello, human.
You been here long?
Long enough. Are we the last ones alive?
No, there's a few of us.
Huh. That's good news, I guess.
Yeah.
That's of course Irons sent you.
Irons? You mean Chief Irons? Is he still around?
Who cares? Hopefully he's somebody's dinner by now.
What do you...
I don't know what I'd do without you.
Are you kidding me? You were doing just fine without me, so I came along and got you all sorts of trouble. I have something of yours.
I don't want it.
Really? Why not? It's so pretty.
It's from my mom. For my birthday last year.
To end with a great horror sound design, let's talk about the replayability. If you are looking to replay RE2 Remake, don't worry, there are plenty of options. Since there are 3 difficulties, I think it's good to try them all, because each of them gives reasonable challenges. If you played in the first run with either of the characters, then try the second run. 2 runs for each character give plenty of fun playthrough to have, especially since each of these runs differ in some ways. Maybe also try replaying the same run again, just to maybe look for things you didn't see before, because the map levels are really big in this game. So just try to get everything in all of the maps. It's really fun. And just like RE3 Remake, here you can also unlock records through challenges. And each of these records sometimes unlocks concept arts and models that are great to look at how the creators detailed the game they made. Lastly, try the extra mods. They show stories of certain characters trying to survive in Raccoon City. These mods really offer new ways to play RE2 Remake that I very much recommend trying, and I get a good rank in each of them. But now, since we have finished talking about everything, let's wrap up with my overall impression of the game. In conclusion, RE2 Remake offers fantastic gameplay, great story, exceptional graphics, good sound design, and acceptable replayability options that take survival horror and remakes of games into an extraordinary level. While the story has a very tiny problem with the way Ada Wong was presented in some scenes, they are very few and don't impact the perfect remake this game presents. It's clear what the score is, so there you go. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful review videos. Feel free to share your thoughts on whether the points I've raised resonate with you or if you have a different perspective, and leave your suggestions in the comments about which game you'd like to see reviewed next. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you all for watching.